Hello, and welcome to the FanPower Podcast, where we talk about fan engagement through the lens of zero-party and first-party data. I am thrilled to have Kiki Mills Johnston on the podcast today. Kiki is very special and important to the FanPower world. She's an amazing investor. She is a philanthropist. She is a former operator, and she is very plugged into the world of sports. Kiki, welcome. Can you tell the world a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here. Kiki Mills Johnston, partner at Drive by DraftKings. I've spent most of my life working with early stage companies, and, I'm a big fan of FanPower, as you know, and and a big sports fan as well. So excited to be here and talk about something really fun like zero-party data.
Awesome. Can you give us a little bit of background on Drive by DraftKings to the folks who may not be as familiar?
Absolutely. Multi-stage VC firm focused in sports tech and entertainment. We invest pre-seed through opportunistic Series B. Have a $60 million fund. 3 areas that we focus on: sports and gaming platforms, media fan engagement, and human performance. Actively investing, have a great portfolio of 18 companies, and have many more to make.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Kiki, the reason this is such an interesting conversation is because you actually introduced us to the term zero-party data. So, for the last 4 years, we've been collecting what we called fan sentiment, which was our way of understanding how the fan feels. But you introduced us to this term and kind of acknowledged that you're hearing it a lot more consistently. So can you tell us what does zero-party data mean to you, and where are you seeing it right now?
Yeah. So zero-party data to me, it's information that I proactively and intentionally share about myself that provides more intimate knowledge of who I am, my explicit interests and preferences in certain products, personal attributes, communication styles. But it's really just who really Kiki is, and it's kind of peeling back the onion of what makes me me.
That's great. That's a really clear definition of it. And over the last couple of years, as we've done a lot more research into what zero-party data is, we're seeing it used very effectively in the world of retail, consumer packaged goods. Brands asking directly of the consumer what they're interested in. But sport is such an interesting industry to look at zero-party data because everything about sport is changing, but it's still powered by loyalty. So tell us, in the position that you're in, sitting between leagues, early stage companies, you're constantly being pitched by new and innovative companies. How are you seeing zero-party data come into that conversation, and where is it going? What does it mean?
Yeah. I think about it in 2 areas. One is, first of all, zero-party data. I mean, it's about, for leagues, for the companies out there, it's about personalization in order to, acquire, retain, extend, the shelf life of a customer, right? How do I deliver more appropriate messaging, appropriate offers at the appropriate time based on what I want? And when you do that, you create a stronger bond between brand and me, such that I want to do more. I want to pay more. I want to, share more. So that part around just understanding that zero-party is really important on that personalization side. Second, I think, it's kind of like it's about how do we digitize fandom? Like, how do we take that real life experience, that emotional connection that we have when we go to a game, we know a team, we bleed green in this family, and extend it beyond the game and beyond that in real life experience, and that raw emotion, and taking that and putting it into something that, some way extends into something that becomes more of a digital thing and a loyalty program. So that part, I think, is just, there's so much opportunity there. And, I can give a ton of examples on it, just like my own experiences, but I feel like there's just a green pasture around how do we really understand who I am, who my family is, what we care about, and extend that further to actually extend my further, like, so we bleed green even further through more family members and more things that we do.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right? Because that the bleed green component, right? You're such, you're huge Eagles fans. It's what we call loyalty beyond reason, right? It's a part of you. It's a part of your fandom. And in the last couple of years, especially in the VC space,
Yeah.
right? What I've seen as an early stage and growing company is that the world of sports betting unlocked this new thought around innovation, because you're going to understand the fans, because there's this new component of revenue that was introduced. And then immediately, just like immediate fast follow, was Web3, thinking
Right.
about the collectibles, the NFTs, and digitizing fandom in that capacity. And it almost feels like those were and are entry points, but they kind of come back to this very kind of basic and fundamental need, which is understanding your fans at a deeper level.
Totally. And I'm so glad you are talking, we're unpacking this a little bit more, because I think that digitizing fandom, I think it's just, it's the simplest of things. We'll just call that the web 2, the emails, things. And it's a web 3 too, but I think for most regular fans, this web 3, it's going to take a while to bring people through to that, right? And that utility part of it still, has to be shown. But, just around kind of some of the basics, example to make it real, because this is how I can talk about it. But, my husband, season ticket holder since he was 20 years old, he took his dad. It's been an experience for them. And now he's taking our son, Benjamin. Benjamin started going at 6 years old, and it's become a tradition for them. Well, imagine if the Eagles knew that, right? Imagine if they could kind of follow because we live in Boston, but they drive down a lot. Certain games, we can't go to Sunday night games. We'll go to Sunday. So imagine they know the time, and then imagine that they know that Keith is now bringing his son. What about, a free membership into the kids club? What about kind of a coupon for ice cream when they're at the game, right? How do they bring that new, like that bonding element in, which further endears, my family to the Eagles? Like, that's why I say there's so much ripe opportunity, and there's so many stories like that. But like, that's the thing that's exciting, that beyond just, hey, we're in the playoffs, here's your ticket. There's so much more to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate opportunity, because when you look at the data that has been accessible, let's call it transactional data,
Yep.
right? Ticket sales, merchandise, POS in some situations, that's not telling you that story. The only way you hear that story is by speaking to your family directly. I'm assuming, I don't like to assume much, but that's not necessarily projected on social. And even if it is, it's projected in a very small corner of social, right? And so it's still
Yep.
not accessible. And
Right.
and that's got to be in my mind the future, because that's access to the next generation. That's building that loyalty beyond reason, starting at the age of 6, which is the key.
You're right. I mean, this is what the NFL wants, right? This is why they have Play 360. This is why they're doing all these things to bring this next generation in. But, at the same time, I just want to acknowledge, like, to your point of transactional data, like, this isn't easy,
Mhm.
right? I mean, in order for whether it's the NFL or a sports team or others to have a really cohesive strategy, this personalization, I mean, it requires a strategy, it requires specific data, and it requires technology to execute, right? Because there's a lot of different data sets. There's missing data, there's siloed data, there's non-actionable data, there's transactional data. How do you start to bring that all together? And how do you start to use, inputs of things to actually help with that? I mean, that's what I know you guys are doing with FanPower, and bringing that in to help augment those data sets. And, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a clear strategy to actually understand how all those parts work together. It's not easy, and, it takes a lot of forethought there, but I think there are ways to do it. And, what I really like about on the zero party data side is that whether it's a widget or a poll or
Mhm.
something, it's not invasive. It can be really simple. It can be really fast. Keith, you going to the game? Great. Who are you bringing? This, and so you start to kind of collect those things, in whatever it is, in a way that's really fast and it's not hard.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, the fan power world aside, I think that VC has the very interesting and I think very cool lens of seeing kind of what the next generation of companies look like very early on. And you also have the ear of the leagues in a lot of ways, and this is why they spin up their own innovation funds as well. So if the 2019-2020 world was sports betting startups and the 21-22 world was Web3 metaverse startups, are you seeing that the 2022-2023 world is different? Is it loyalty? Is it zero party and first party data? What are you seeing out there?
I think one of the themes, but I'll just focus on one as it relates to this. I think it's personalization at scale, leveraging AI, leveraging technologies, other technologies that help us do that. But I think this personalization, which that's always been a theme,
Mhm.
but I think now, technology further powers it. AI allows that at scale. Like, that is the part where it's like we have to know our customers even better,
Mhm.
because now it's about what we want, when we want it, and how we want it.
Yep.
And I think many, like the next generation, are kind of willing to give more about themselves, because look at like the sharing generation that's out there, and then that is an expectation, of that I get an email on something, but I didn't. We still all get that, right? We'll get an email or whatever it is on something that I'm not interested in, that I never knew about. Like, that's not me. Like, how, like, you instantly get turned off. You're like, you
Yep.
should know me by now. Like, that's baseline.
Yep. Very cool. Well, I appreciate your thoughts on this. I appreciate your perspective. I'm excited to follow along in your journey and really understand from you kind of what you're seeing and how this world evolves. Um, I'm gonna finish with one question that
Yeah.
I'm particularly interested in. The introduction of upstart leagues into this country has been fascinating. The introduction
Yeah.
of international sports coming into the U.S., right? Cricket, I think, is the most recent introduction. Uh, what are you excited about? What are you most excited about, and why?
Yeah. Um, so I'm putting my mom hat on, but as a mom of a young boy, like, I know this is not necessarily an upstart, but I'm really excited about flag football. Like,
Cool.
I love it. It's actually rising in popularity with girls and women. So I think you're going to see more there on the women's side of sport. Um, but I marvel at the strategy, and actually in many ways it's harder to do because you have to pull these little strings. But I've been a huge fan of watching that. And even in our little town, I know like there's a girls team that's actually, I think, almost gone on to state. I mean, at a older level, but I love that. I mean, we're a football family in general, but flag, something I'm excited about. I would say pickleball, because everyone says pickleball,
Yeah.
but first and foremost, I'm pumped about flag. What are you excited about?
First of all, that's really cool because I think flag football is one of those sports that I wish we actually played in a more structured way. It takes an immense amount of athleticism, and if you weren't playing full contact football, it was still a really great way to get out there and do something fun. So I think that's awesome. I hadn't heard that before. What am I interested in?
Yeah,
I'm interested in. I tend to look at these things through a bit of a different lens, right? Like what's
yeah,
going to grasp a niche audience and what has the opportunity to create a pipeline in the schools.
yeah,
Going back to a contact sport, I'm actually pretty interested in the rugby world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, the Major League Rugby is they're here, they're live. It's a really interesting and international sport. I've gotten behind it in the past, but it never really had like a legitimate fandom to it, just because it never really had a presence in the schools. But I'm starting to see it in the schools around me now.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. It teaches discipline, but we'll see. It also has a lot of injuries, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think it's, I think what your point you're getting at too is just there's a variety of sports for people to play that require all different, high levels and lower levels of skills. But we all know what sport and teamwork does for just from a teaching perspective. It's critical. So I think anyone that can grasp into something's big. I'd say last thing, and I know we're at the end, but like I will call it an upstart sport, even though it's an extension of baseball. But banana ball,
Oh
like
yeah,
bananas, like the best. Like Benjamin, my son, he had a week-long camp over the holidays in Savannah at banana ball. It is, it's like the Harlem Globetrotters for baseball, but
yep,
it is own rules. It is the funnest, just most engaging way to fall in love with a sport again.
yeah.
And it's about fun. It's about engagement, right? And there's so much we can do with that.
Yeah, I've got his book on the bookcase behind me. He's all about fans first, and
Totally.
everything that they're doing is making a sport that is consciously making an effort to reach a younger generation, very very engaging and fun and entertainment, and it's everything that the Harlem Globetrotters did.
Totally.
And it's so unexpected, and it's perfect for social media.
They're the best. They're totally the best.
Yeah,
Cool.
completely. Well, thank you, Kiki. I appreciate the time. It's always
Oh,
great
thank
to talk to
you.
you. But yeah, just you bringing this knowledge is incredibly helpful, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.